Hello there, and welcome to the Sleep and Wonder channel. As you settle in, allow your breathing to slow and let the noise of the day gently fade into the background. There is nothing you need to follow closely, nothing you need to hold on to. Only a quiet space opening, one breath at a time. Tonight, we'll be entering the world of flowers, structures shaped by function, timing, and interaction. Living forms that appear briefly, yet support entire systems far beyond their moment of bloom. We'll explore how flowers are built, how their shapes guide movement, how color and scent work as precise signals, and how pollination connects plants to insects, birds, wind, and time itself. We'll move through the environments where flowers grow, open fields, forests, wetlands, and changing landscapes, observing how soil, light, water, and climate quietly influence when and how flowers appear. Along the way, we'll look at flowers as part of larger communities, how they stabilize land, feed ecosystems, and persist across seasons and generations through cycles of growth, dispersal, and renewal. We'll also consider how flowers intersect with human life, not only through use and cultivation, but through presence, rhythm, and continuity, and how their slow, steady processes naturally invite attention to soften. As this journey unfolds, you may notice your thoughts becoming lighter, your breathing more even, your body responding to the same unhurried pace that flowers follow across landscapes and time. If you enjoy these quiet journeys, you're gently invited to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, simply breathe in and breathe out. Let your body soften. Let your thoughts slow and grow lighter as we step quietly into the calm, functional beauty of the flowering world. Let's begin. Flowers are often noticed for their colors, their shapes, or the way they briefly transform a landscape. But before any of that, a flower is something much simpler and much more precise. A flower is not a decoration. It is not a permanent structure. It is an event. In biological terms, a flower is a temporary reproductive structure, formed by certain plants only when specific internal and external conditions align. It appears quietly, performs its function, and then disappears. Unlike leaves or stems, which remain for long periods, flowers exist for a limited window of time. Their presence is intentional in function, even though it unfolds without awareness or choice. This temporary nature is not a weakness. It is an optimization. Plants do not produce flowers continuously. Flowering requires energy, resources, and coordination with the environment. Temperature, light, water availability, and internal chemical signals must align before a plant commits to forming a flower. When those conditions are met, the plant redirects resources that were previously used for growth or maintenance toward reproduction. From the plant's perspective, flowering is a significant investment. This is why flowers are often synchronized within a population. Entire fields bloom at once. Trees flower simultaneously across wide areas. This coordination increases the likelihood of successful reproduction by making flowers more visible and accessible to pollinators, or by releasing pollen into the air at the same time. Seen this way, Flowers are not constant features of the environment. They are moments. They are transitions between phases of a plant's life. Long before humans existed, flowering plants, known as angiosperms, began to appear on Earth. Their emergence marked a profound shift in terrestrial ecosystems. Prior to flowers, plant reproduction relied mostly on spores or exposed seeds. Flowers introduced a more enclosed, protected, and efficient reproductive strategy. Instead of releasing reproductive material freely into the environment, flowering plants developed structures that could guide, protect, and increase the chances of fertilization. This shift allowed flowering plants to diversify rapidly and occupy an extraordinary range of environments. Today, flowering plants dominate most terrestrial ecosystems. They shape forests, grasslands, wetlands, deserts, and even aquatic environments. Yet the flower itself remains a brief structure within this dominance, appearing only when needed, then giving way to fruits, seeds, or dormancy. This brevity is essential to understanding flowers correctly. A flower is not meant to last. Its role is not to endure, but to connect. It connects genetic material from one generation to the next. It connects plants to animals, insects, wind, and water. It connects internal biological processes to external environmental conditions. From a structural point of view, flowers are highly specialized. Each part has a function. Each arrangement is the result of long evolutionary refinement. There is no excess. Even the most elaborate-looking flower is governed by efficiency. What may appear delicate or ornamental is often the result of precise mechanical and chemical processes. Petals guide movement. Colors create contrast. Scents disperse molecules that interact with the sensory systems of animals. Nectar provides a small energy reward in exchange for movement and contact. All of this occurs without intention, without awareness, and without urgency. Flowers do not hurry. They do not adjust their timing once formed. They open, close, release, and fade according to internal rhythms shaped by millions of years of evolution. Their schedules are aligned with the daily cycle of light, the seasonal cycle of temperature, and the availability of pollinators. Some flowers open only during the day. Others open at night. Some remain open for a single morning. Others persist for weeks. Each timing reflects a specific ecological context. Importantly, flowers are not produced in isolation. Their emergence is part of a broader physiological shift within the plant. Hormones such as auxins, gibberellins, and cytokinins regulate when flowering begins. These signals integrate information about light duration, temperature patterns, and the plant's own age and condition. Once flowering begins, the plant enters a different phase of life. Growth slows or changes direction. Energy is redirected. The plant's priorities shift from expansion to continuity. This shift is quiet. There is no visible signal announcing it. Yet within the tissues of the plant, profound changes are taking place. Understanding flowers as events rather than objects changes how we observe them. It places them within time rather than space alone. A flower is not simply something to be seen. It is something that is happening. This perspective also explains why flowers are so sensitive to environmental disruption, because they rely on precise timing and coordination. Changes in temperature, rainfall patterns, or the availability of pollinators can alter flowering behavior. In many regions, shifts in climate have already begun to change when and how plants flower. Yet even with these changes, the fundamental nature of flowers remains the same. They are structures shaped by balance rather than excess. They appear when conditions allow. They perform their function efficiently, and then they withdraw. There is no accumulation, no permanence, only continuity. As we move deeper into the world of flowers, it becomes clear that their visible beauty is not their primary purpose. It is a byproduct of function, a consequence of form meeting necessity. To understand flowers fully, we must look beyond their surface appearance and begin with their structure. The parts that compose a flower, often overlooked, reveal how these quiet events are assembled and how they accomplish their task with remarkable precision. And so naturally our attention shifts from the event itself to its internal design, to the anatomy that allows a flower to exist at all. To understand flowers beyond their surface, it is necessary to look closely at how they are built. What appears at first glance as a simple arrangement of petals is, in fact, a carefully organized structure where each part has a specific role. The anatomy of a flower reflects millions of years of gradual refinement, shaped by the need to reproduce efficiently while using as little energy as possible. Despite the extraordinary variety of flowers across the planet, most follow a shared structural plan. This common design allows scientists to describe flower anatomy in clear terms, even when individual flowers look very different from one another. At the outermost level of a flower are the sepals. These are often small leaf-like structures that surround the flower when it is still developing. Before a flower opens, sepals act as a protective layer, shielding the delicate inner tissues from physical damage, temperature fluctuations, and dehydration. In many species, sepals remain visible even after the flower opens, though they often blend into the background once their protective role is complete. Inside the sepals are the petals. Petals are typically the most visible part of a flower and are often associated with color, shape, and visual appeal. However, their function is practical rather than decorative. Petals help attract pollinators by creating contrast, guiding movement, and sometimes providing landing surfaces. Their size, number, color, and arrangement vary widely depending on which pollinators a flower relies on. Petals may also play a role in regulating temperature or protecting reproductive organs from excess moisture or wind. In some flowers, petals are fused into tubes or complex shapes that control how an animal approaches the flower, ensuring contact with the reproductive structures inside. Together, sepals and petals form what is known as the perianth, the non-reproductive outer part of the flower. While the perianth shapes the flower's external appearance, the core function of a flower lies deeper within. At the center of the flower are the reproductive structures. The male reproductive parts are called stamens. Each stamen typically consists of a thin stalk, known as the filament, topped by a structure called the anther. The anther produces pollen, microscopic grains that contain male genetic material. Pollen grains are remarkably complex. Each grain carries the information needed to fertilize an ovule, yet they are designed to survive exposure to air, movement, and transport by animals or wind. Their outer walls are often textured or sticky, helping them adhere to pollinators or surfaces they come into contact with. Opposite the stamens are the female reproductive structures, collectively known as the pistil or carpel. The pistil is usually located at the center of the flower and consists of three main parts: the stigma, the style, and the ovary. The stigma is the uppermost portion of the pistil and serves as the receiving surface for pollen. It is often sticky or textured, increasing the likelihood that pollen grains will remain attached when they arrive. Below the stigma is the style, a slender column that connects the stigma to the ovary. The style provides a pathway for pollen tubes to grow after pollen grains germinate. At the base of the pistil lies the ovary. Inside the ovary are one or more ovules, each containing female genetic material. When fertilization occurs, the ovule develops into a seed, and the ovary often transforms into a fruit. This transition marks the end of the flower's role and the beginning of the next stage in the plant's life cycle. Not all flowers contain both male and female structures. Some species produce flowers that are exclusively male or female, either on the same plant or on separate plants. Others contain both reproductive systems within a single flower, increasing the likelihood of successful reproduction under stable conditions. The number and arrangement of these parts vary across plant families. Some flowers have a single pistil, while others contain many. Some have numerous stamens arranged in rings or clusters, while others rely on only a few. These variations are not random. They reflect the evolutionary history of each species and its relationship with the environment. The symmetry of a flower also plays a role in its anatomy. Radially symmetrical flowers can be approached from multiple directions, while bilaterally symmetrical flowers often guide pollinators toward a specific orientation. This structural guidance ensures that pollinators contact the correct reproductive parts in a predictable way. Even structures that appear purely ornamental often serve multiple functions. Nectar, for example, is produced by specialized tissues within the flower and acts as an energy reward for pollinators. The location of nectar sources influences how animals move within the flower, increasing the chances of pollen transfer. Importantly, all of these structures are temporary. Once fertilization has occurred, or once the window for fertilization has passed, the flower begins to change. Petals may wither or fall away. Stamens dry out. The ovary enlarges. The event of flowering quietly concludes, and the plant redirects its resources towards seed development or recovery. This impermanence highlights the efficiency of flower anatomy. Nothing remains longer than necessary. Each structure exists only for as long as it serves its purpose. Understanding flower anatomy allows us to see flowers not as passive displays, but as active systems. They are carefully engineered interfaces between plants and their surroundings, shaped by physical constraints, biological needs, and ecological relationships. Once this structure is understood, a deeper question naturally arises. If flowers are so precisely built, if each part exists for a reason, then what larger strategy do they serve? Why did plants evolve flowers in the first place? And what advantage does this complex, temporary structure provide over other forms of reproduction? Once the structure of a flower is understood, a larger question naturally follows. If producing a flower requires energy, coordination, and precise timing, then why did plants evolve such a complex and temporary structure at all? The answer lies in reproduction, but not simply in the act of producing seeds. Flowers represent a highly refined solution to a fundamental biological challenge: how to ensure that genetic material is successfully transferred, protected, and continued in a changing environment. Before the appearance of flowering plants, many plants relied on simpler reproductive strategies. Mosses and ferns released spores into the air, depending largely on chance for successful reproduction. Early seed plants produced exposed seeds that relied heavily on wind for fertilization. These methods worked, but they were inefficient and unpredictable. Flowers changed this dynamic. By enclosing reproductive organs within a specialized structure, flowering plants gained greater control over fertilization. Flowers allowed plants to guide how pollen moved, when it was released, and where it was received. This control increased the likelihood that fertilization would occur between compatible individuals, improving genetic diversity while reducing wasted energy. From an evolutionary perspective, flowers are not extravagant additions. They are targeted investments. Producing a flower requires the plant to temporarily shift resources away from growth and maintenance. Sugars, nutrients, and water are redirected toward the formation of petals, reproductive tissues, nectar, and scent compounds. This investment only makes sense if it leads to a clear reproductive advantage, and in most environments it does. One of the primary advantages of flowers is their ability to involve other organisms in the reproductive process. By attracting animals, insects, birds, bats, and others, flowering plants greatly expanded the range and precision of pollen transfer. Instead of relying solely on wind or chance contact, plants began to form indirect partnerships with mobile organisms. These interactions are not cooperative in a conscious sense. Pollinators are not helping plants intentionally. They are responding to sensory cues: color, scent, shape, and reward. In return for nectar or pollen, they transport pollen from one flower to another, often across considerable distances. This system benefits both sides. Pollinators gain energy or nutrients, while plants gain reliable pollen movement. Over time, this mutual advantage led to increasing specialization. Flowers evolved shapes, colors, and scents that matched the sensory abilities and behaviors of specific pollinators. As a result, flowering plants diversified rapidly. This diversification reshaped ecosystems. Flowering plants began to dominate landscapes, replacing many non-flowering plants in a wide range of habitats. Their success supported the expansion of insects and other animals that depended on flowers for food, leading to increasingly complex ecological networks. Another key reason flowers exist is protection. Within a flower, the ovules, which will become seeds if fertilized, are shielded from the external environment. This enclosure protects developing reproductive cells from physical damage, dehydration, and temperature extremes. It also allows fertilization to occur in a more controlled internal environment, increasing the chances of successful seed development. Once fertilization has occurred, the flower's role shifts. The ovary often develops into a fruit, further protecting the seeds and aiding in their dispersal. In this way, Flowers are not isolated structures but part of a broader reproductive strategy that includes seed formation and distribution. Timing is another crucial factor. Flowers allow plants to synchronize reproduction with favorable environmental conditions. Many plants flower only when days reach a certain length, temperatures fall within a specific range, or water availability increases. These signals help ensure that seeds will develop when resources are sufficient and conditions are stable. This timing also reduces competition. By flowering at different times of the year, plant species avoid overwhelming pollinators or competing directly for the same reproductive window. Seasonal patterns of flowering create a staggered availability of resources, supporting both plant diversity and pollinator populations. Importantly, flowers also influence genetic diversity. By encouraging cross-pollination between different individuals, flowers reduce the likelihood of self-fertilization. This genetic mixing increases resilience, allowing plant populations to adapt more effectively to environmental change, disease, and shifting conditions. From this perspective, flowers are not simply about reproduction in the short term, they are about long-term survival. Even flowers that appear fragile or short-lived are part of this broader strategy. Their brief existence minimizes energy costs while maximizing impact. Once their role is complete, they withdraw, leaving behind seeds that carry the plant's genetic legacy forward. There is no urgency in this process, no excess, only coordination. Flowers do not respond to immediate pressures in the way animals do. They operate on biological schedules shaped by long-term patterns. Their success depends not on speed, but on alignment. Alignment with climate, with pollinators, and with the internal rhythms of the plant itself. Understanding why flowers exist reveals them as functional solutions rather than ornamental features. Their beauty, often emphasized in human perception, is secondary. It is a consequence of effectiveness, not an end in itself. As we observe flowers through this lens, they become easier to understand and easier to place within the larger context of life on Earth. They are interfaces, connecting plants to animals, internal processes to external environments, and one generation to the next. This understanding prepares us to look more closely at the movement that makes flowering successful. Because if flowers exist to facilitate reproduction, then the process that completes that purpose deserves careful attention. How does pollen actually move? And what patterns emerge when movement occurs without intention, awareness, or urgency? Pollination is often described as an interaction, a meeting between a flower and another living being. But from a biological perspective, pollination is not an action with purpose or awareness. It is movement. Quiet, repeated movement shaped by structure, timing, and chance. At its simplest, pollination is the transfer of pollen from the male reproductive structures of a flower to the female reproductive structures of the same species. Without this transfer, fertilization cannot occur, and seeds will not form. Everything that follows, fruits, dispersal, future plants, depends on this moment of contact. Yet the movement of pollen rarely happens on its own. Pollen grains are small, but they are not passive. Their surfaces are often textured, sticky, or shaped in ways that increase the likelihood of attachment. These properties allow pollen to adhere to insects, feathers, fur, or even air currents. Still, pollen requires movement beyond the plant itself. Flowers do not walk toward one another. They wait. This waiting is not inactivity, it is preparation. Flowers position themselves in the environment with remarkable precision. Their height, orientation, and timing are all aligned with predictable patterns of movement around them. Insects follow habitual paths. Birds revisit known feeding sites. Air currents move in consistent directions during certain times of day or year. Flowers emerge into these patterns rather than attempting to control them. In this way, pollination is not guided by intention, but by alignment. When an insect lands on a flower in search of nectar or pollen, it is responding to sensory cues: color, contrast, scent, and shape. The insect does not recognize the flower as a reproductive structure. It recognizes it as a source of energy. As it moves across the flower, pollen adheres to its body. When the insect visits another flower of the same species, some of that pollen is transferred. This transfer is often inefficient on a single visit, but over time, across many movements and many individuals, pollination becomes reliable. Different pollinators move differently, and flowers reflect this. Bees tend to land and crawl across surfaces. Butterflies probe narrow spaces. Birds hover or perch briefly. Bats navigate using sound and scent in low light. Each pattern of movement leaves a different imprint on flower structure. Flowers do not direct these movements consciously. Instead, they shape the environment through form and reward. Nectar placement determines where a pollinator must reach. Narrow openings control entry. Curved petals guide approach angles. These structural cues reduce randomness without eliminating it. Wind pollination follows a similar principle, though without animal involvement. In wind-pollinated plants, flowers often produce large quantities of lightweight pollen. The air becomes the moving agent, carrying pollen across distances without direction or intention. While this method is less precise, it compensates through volume and timing. In all cases, movement remains central. Pollination does not require recognition, decision-making, or cooperation. It requires only that living systems move through shared spaces, often enough for contact to occur. This simplicity is one of its strengths. Pollination does not depend on perfect conditions. It depends on repetition. Over evolutionary time, plants that aligned their flowering with reliable movement patterns were more likely to reproduce successfully. Those that did not gradually disappeared. What remains today is a vast diversity of flowers whose structures reflect countless experiments in movement and alignment. Importantly, pollination is rarely immediate. A flower may be visited many times before successful pollen transfer occurs. Some visits leave no pollen behind. Others deposit pollen that fails to germinate. Still others may transfer pollen to incompatible flowers. The process tolerates inefficiency. This tolerance contributes to the calm rhythm of flowering ecosystems. There is no urgency built into pollination. Flowers remain open for hours or days, allowing many opportunities for movement to pass through them. Even when conditions are imperfect, the system continues. Pollination also connects plants indirectly. A single pollinator may visit dozens or hundreds of flowers in a day, linking individuals that never physically interact. In this way, movement creates networks, invisible paths through which genetic material flows. These networks are shaped by geography, climate, and behavior. Pollinators follow routes influenced by terrain and resource availability. Flowers that align with these routes become part of a larger pattern of exchange. This exchange is not stable or fixed. It shifts with seasons, weather, and population changes. Yet it remains resilient precisely because it is not centralized or controlled. From a human perspective, pollination often goes unnoticed. It happens quietly, without sound or spectacle. Yet without it, flowering plants could not persist and many ecosystems would collapse. Pollination supports not only wild plant populations, but also agriculture and food systems. Many crops depend on pollinators to produce fruit and seed. Even wind-pollinated crops rely on similar principles of timing and movement, though without animal involvement. Despite its importance, pollination remains a background process. It does not demand attention. It unfolds at its own pace, shaped by patterns older than human observation. This lack of urgency is part of its strength. Pollination demonstrates how complex outcomes can arise from simple movements repeated over time. There is no central coordination, no instruction, no awareness of outcome, yet continuity is maintained. As we observe pollination in this way, it becomes clear that flowers are not passive participants. They are structured interfaces, designed to receive movement, not to create it. Their success depends on how well they align with the flow of life around them. This understanding naturally leads to a closer examination of form. Because if movement completes the purpose of flowers, then the shapes flowers take, the openings, curves, depths, and surfaces, play a critical role in guiding that movement without force or command. And so, without any shift in pace, attention turns gently from movement itself to the structures that quietly shape it. As this chapter settles, you may find yourself wondering, how do specific flower shapes influence the way pollinators move? Why do some flowers seem open and accessible while others appear narrow or complex? What happens when a flower's form matches a visitor perfectly, or not at all? Once movement is understood as the foundation of pollination, the role of form becomes clearer. Flowers do not create movement, but they receive it. Their shapes exist to guide bodies, insect bodies, bird beaks, wings, antennae, and sometimes even the flow of air itself, through space in predictable ways. Flower shape is not a matter of preference or aesthetics. It is the result of physical interaction. Every curve, opening, and surface reflects repeated contact with living visitors over long periods of time. What remains today is what worked. At the most basic level, a flower must allow access to its reproductive structures. Pollen must be contacted, and pollen must be delivered. How this happens varies widely, and shape is the primary tool plants use to influence that process. Some flowers are open and shallow. Their reproductive parts are exposed, easily reached by a wide range of visitors. These flowers tend to be visited by many different species: bees, flies, beetles, butterflies, none of which need specialized bodies or behaviors. This generalist strategy increases the number of potential pollinators, but reduces precision. Other flowers are deep, narrow, or tubular. In these flowers, nectar is placed far from the opening, requiring visitors to reach inward. This design favors pollinators with long tongues, beaks, or proboscises. As the visitor reaches for nectar, its body is guided past the flower's reproductive structures in a specific way, increasing the likelihood of pollen transfer. This is not guidance in the cognitive sense. The flower does not instruct, it constrains. By limiting access, the flower reduces randomness. Only certain bodies can move through the structure efficiently. Over time, this selectivity increases reproductive success by ensuring pollen is transferred between compatible flowers. Some flowers take this specialization further. Bilaterally symmetrical flowers, those with a single plane of symmetry, often require visitors to approach from a particular angle. These flowers may provide a single landing platform or a narrow opening that aligns the visitor's body precisely with stamens and stigma. In contrast, radially symmetrical flowers allow access from multiple directions. Their shapes accommodate varied movement paths, trading precision for flexibility. Both strategies are effective, depending on environmental conditions and pollinator availability. The orientation of a flower also matters. Some flowers face upward, exposing their reproductive parts to open air and light. Others hang downward, protecting pollen and nectar from rain while favoring hovering or climbing visitors. Still others adjust their orientation throughout the day, tracking light or temperature changes. These adjustments influence who visits and how. Even small structural features can have large effects. The texture of petals can provide grip. Ridges and grooves can channel movement. Hairs may block smaller insects while allowing larger ones through. In some species, parts of the flower act as temporary barriers, opening only when enough force is applied. This mechanical filtering ensures that pollen transfer occurs primarily through effective visitors rather than accidental contact. Flower shape is also closely linked to the behavior of pollinators. Bees, for example, tend to land and crawl. Flowers visited by bees often have sturdy landing surfaces and internal pathways that accommodate walking movement. Butterflies, which prefer to hover or perch lightly, are often associated with flowers that offer narrow access points and stable nectar sources. Bird-pollinated flowers frequently have elongated shapes that match the length of a bird's beak. These flowers often lack landing platforms, requiring hovering or brief contact. Their structures are built to withstand rapid movement without damage. Bat-pollinated flowers tend to be large, robust, and open at night. Their shapes allow access by animals navigating in low light, often guided by scent rather than color. In each case, the flower's shape reflects repeated encounters with bodies moving in consistent ways. Over evolutionary time, shapes that aligned well with these movements persisted. Those that did not gradually disappeared. Importantly, flower shapes are not fixed designs imposed once and maintained forever. They vary within species and across environments. Small differences in shape can influence which pollinators visit more frequently, shaping local adaptation. This variability contributes to diversification. Populations exposed to different pollinators may gradually develop distinct flower shapes, even when growing in similar climates. Over time, this process can contribute to the formation of new species. Shape also influences how long a flower remains functional. Flowers with exposed structures may close or degrade more quickly, while protected flowers can remain open longer. Structural protection extends the window of opportunity for pollination. In some cases, flowers change shape over time. Petals may shift position after pollination, closing access or redirecting visitors away from fertilized flowers. This prevents unnecessary visits and encourages pollinators to move on to flowers that still require pollen transfer. These changes are subtle and often overlooked, yet they reflect a highly dynamic system responding to contact and outcome. From a distance, flowers may appear still, but at the scale of interaction, they are active participants in movement. Their shapes receive, redirect, limit, and permit motion. They are not passive surfaces, but structured spaces. This perspective shifts how flowers are understood. Instead of asking why flowers look the way they do, it becomes more useful to ask what movements they are shaped to receive. Once this question is considered, another layer of communication becomes apparent. Shape guides bodies, but something must guide attention. Color, contrast, and visual signals refine this process further, helping visitors recognize flowers from a distance and distinguish one type from another. And so, gently and without urgency, attention moves from structure to signal, from form to the language of color. After shape has guided movement, another layer of communication quietly comes into focus. While form directs how a visitor moves within a flower, color often determines whether that visitor notices the flower at all. Color operates at a distance. It does not guide touch or contact, but attention. In flowers, color is not an artistic choice. It is a functional signal shaped by the visual systems of other organisms. What appears vivid, subtle, or even invisible to human eyes may look entirely different to insects, birds, or other pollinators. The language of color is therefore not universal, it is specific. Flower color emerges from pigments produced within petal tissues. The most common pigments include anthocyanins, carotenoids, and betalains. Each group absorbs and reflects different wavelengths of light, producing reds, blues, purples, yellows, and oranges. The precise combination and concentration of these pigments determine the final appearance of a flower. But color alone does not explain how flowers are perceived. Different pollinators see the world differently. Bees, for example, can perceive ultraviolet light, which is invisible to humans. Many flowers that appear uniformly colored to us display intricate ultraviolet patterns when viewed through a bee's visual spectrum. These patterns often function as visual guides, directing pollinators toward nectar and reproductive structures. Birds, in contrast, tend to respond strongly to reds and oranges. Many bird-pollinated flowers display bright red coloration, which stands out against green foliage, but is less visible to many insects. This reduces visits from less effective pollinators, while attracting those best suited to the flower's structure. Butterflies, moths, and flies each have their own visual sensitivities. As a result, flower color often reflects the primary pollinator group a plant relies on. This alignment between pigment production and perception increases efficiency. Energy spent producing pigments results in higher chances of successful visitation. Color also functions in combination with contrast. A flower does not need to be bright if it stands out clearly against its background. White or pale flowers are common in shaded environments or at night, where contrast is more important than hue. Dark centers, surrounded by lighter petals, can create focal points that guide attention inward. Importantly, flower color is not static. In many species, color changes over the lifespan of the flower. Newly opened flowers may display brighter or more intense coloration, signaling readiness for pollination. After pollination occurs, colors may fade or shift, discouraging further visits and redirecting pollinators toward unpollinated flowers. This subtle signaling conserves energy and reduces unnecessary contact. It also demonstrates that flower color is not merely an attractant, but part of an ongoing communication process. Environmental factors influence color expression as well. Light intensity, temperature, soil composition, and water availability can affect pigment production. Flowers growing in high-light environments may develop deeper pigmentation to protect tissues from excess radiation. In cooler climates, pigmentation can influence heat absorption, helping flowers warm more quickly during short growing seasons. Soil chemistry also plays a role. In some plants, soil pH can alter pigment structure, leading to noticeable color variation. This variation is not decorative. It reflects chemical interactions between the plant and its environment. Color can also serve functions beyond pollination. In certain species, pigmentation protects reproductive tissues from ultraviolet damage. In others, it deters herbivores by signaling toxicity or unpalatability. These protective roles add another layer of meaning to floral color. Despite this complexity, color does not operate alone. It works in concert with shape, scent, and timing. A brightly colored flower without accessible nectar may attract attention but fail to facilitate pollination. Conversely, a perfectly shaped flower with no visual signal may remain unnoticed. Balance is essential. Flowers that rely heavily on color often exist in environments where visual detection is reliable. Open landscapes, well-lit forests, and clear weather conditions favor visual signaling. In contrast, in dense vegetation or low-light environments, other cues become more important. This explains why some flowers invest little energy in pigmentation. Wind-pollinated plants, for example, often produce small greenish flowers that blend into their surroundings. These flowers do not need to attract attention. Their reproductive strategy depends on air movement rather than animal visitation. In these cases, color becomes unnecessary. Resources are allocated elsewhere, toward producing large amounts of pollen or positioning reproductive structures in exposed locations. Understanding the language of color highlights an important principle. Flowers do not communicate for beauty, but for function. What humans interpret as aesthetic diversity is, in biological terms, a record of environmental interaction and sensory alignment. Color reflects what works. Across landscapes, flower colors form patterns shaped by pollinator communities and ecological conditions. Regions dominated by insect pollination often display a wide range of colors and patterns. Areas where wind or self-pollination is common may show far less variation. This variation is not random. It is structured by constraints. Even within a single species, color can vary subtly from place to place. These differences may influence which pollinators visit more frequently, shaping reproductive success over time. In this way, color contributes to local adaptation and long-term diversification. At a slower pace, color also influences human perception. Humans are drawn to certain colors, often without understanding why. Many cultivated flowers emphasize traits that appeal visually to people rather than to natural pollinators. This shift reflects human intervention rather than ecological necessity. Yet even in cultivated forms, the underlying pigment systems remain the same. The language may be exaggerated, but it is not invented. When observed calmly, flower color reveals itself as a quiet negotiation between visibility and efficiency. Too much visibility can attract unwanted visitors. Too little can result in missed opportunities. Successful flowers occupy a narrow balance. As this balance becomes clearer, attention naturally moves toward flowers that operate without visual display altogether. Flowers that do not rely on color, scent, or animal attention challenge the idea that attraction is necessary for reproduction. And so, without shifting pace, the focus gently transitions toward flowers that function almost invisibly. Flowers shaped not for eyes, but for air. Not all flowers are meant to be noticed. While many flowering plants invest energy in color, scent, and shape to attract animals, a large number follow a very different strategy. These are wind-pollinated flowers. They do not rely on insects, birds, or mammals to move pollen from one plant to another. Instead, they depend on air currents, invisible, unpredictable, and constant. This strategy shapes every aspect of their structure. Wind-pollinated flowers are usually small, simple, and visually discreet. Their petals, if present at all, are often reduced in size or absent entirely. Bright colors are unnecessary. Scents are minimal or non-existent. Nectar is not produced because there is no visitor to reward. The absence of visual appeal is not a limitation. It is an adaptation. In wind-pollinated species, reproduction depends on exposure rather than attraction. Flowers are positioned where air can move freely across them, at the tips of branches, along open stems, or above surrounding vegetation. Height and openness matter more than beauty. Grasses are one of the most widespread examples of wind-pollinated plants. Their flowers form clusters that release enormous quantities of pollen into the air. Trees such as oaks, birches, pines, and many conifers also rely on wind pollination. In these plants, flowering often occurs before leaves fully develop, ensuring that air movement is not blocked by foliage. Timing is essential. Wind-pollinated plants tend to release pollen during periods of dry, stable weather. Moist air causes pollen grains to clump together and fall quickly, reducing dispersal distance. Dry air allows pollen to remain suspended longer, increasing the chance that it will reach a receptive flower. Because wind is unreliable, these plants compensate by producing large amounts of pollen. This abundance is not wasteful from an evolutionary perspective. It is necessary. Only a small fraction of airborne pollen will land on a compatible stigma. The structures that receive pollen are adapted accordingly. Stigmas in wind-pollinated flowers are often large, branched, or feathery. This increases surface area and improves the chance of intercepting pollen grains carried by air currents. Unlike animal-pollinated flowers, which often have enclosed reproductive structures, Wind-pollinated flowers expose their stamens and stigmas directly to the air. Anthers are frequently positioned so that even slight movement releases pollen. This openness creates vulnerability. Pollen can be lost, damaged, or dispersed far from suitable partners. But the scale at which wind operates compensates for these losses. Wind pollination works best in environments where plant density is high and species are abundant. Forests dominated by wind-pollinated trees release vast clouds of pollen each spring. Grasslands, fields, and open plains provide continuous airflow, supporting this reproductive strategy. In these landscapes, pollination is not a targeted event. It is statistical. Because pollen is carried randomly, wind-pollinated plants often depend on proximity. Individuals of the same species tend to grow close together, increasing the likelihood that pollen will reach a compatible flower. This clustering influences how plant communities organize themselves spatially. Wind pollination also shapes flowering synchrony. Many wind-pollinated species release pollen at the same time. This overlap increases pollen density in the air, improving reproductive success across the population. In forests, this can lead to brief but intense flowering periods, often lasting only days or weeks. During these moments, air becomes a medium of exchange. From a human perspective, wind-pollinated flowers often go unnoticed. They do not stand out visually. Their reproductive activity happens quietly, without movement or sound. Yet they are responsible for a significant portion of plant reproduction on Earth. This includes many plants that humans depend on. Grasses, including wheat, rice, and corn, rely on wind pollination. These plants form the foundation of global food systems. Their flowers are rarely seen or admired, but their function is critical. Wind pollination also contributes to large-scale ecological processes. Seasonal pollen release influences atmospheric composition. Pollen grains travel long distances, sometimes crossing continents. They settle into soil and water, becoming part of ecological records used to study past climates and vegetation patterns. These grains, preserved in sediment layers, tell stories of ancient landscapes. Despite its efficiency at scale, wind pollination is not suitable for all environments. Dense forests with limited airflow reduce its effectiveness. Tropical rainforests, for example, favor animal pollination due to high humidity and complex vegetation structure. As a result, wind-pollinated plants are unevenly distributed across ecosystems. They dominate open environments and temperate regions, while animal-pollinated plants are more common in closed, diverse habitats. This division reflects environmental constraints rather than competition. Wind-pollinated flowers also show less variation in form compared to animal-pollinated species. Without the need to attract specific visitors, there is less pressure for diversification in shape or color. This results in simpler floral architecture. However, simplicity does not mean uniformity. Subtle differences in anther placement, stigma structure, and flowering time can significantly affect success. These details are refined over long periods, shaped by airflow patterns, plant height, and surrounding vegetation. At a physiological level, wind-pollinated plants allocate resources differently. Energy that might otherwise be spent producing pigments, scents, or nectar is redirected toward pollen production and structural support. This reallocation reflects efficiency under specific conditions. There is also a trade-off. Wind-pollinated plants tend to have less control over where pollen goes. Animal-pollinated plants can influence visitor behavior through color, scent, and reward. Wind-pollinated plants release pollen and rely on chance. Yet chance, when repeated at scale, becomes reliable. From a quiet observational standpoint, wind-pollinated flowers illustrate a form of reproduction that operates without display. They demonstrate that visibility is not a requirement for success. Function can exist without ornament. This principle echoes across plant biology. Many critical processes occur out of sight, guided by physical forces rather than interaction. Air, water, gravity, and light all shape plant life in ways that do not require attention. As attention lingers on this quiet mode of reproduction, it naturally shifts toward another element that moves invisibly through plant communities. Movement that does not rely on wind alone, but on time, gravity, and landscape. And so, without interruption, the focus drifts toward how flowers interact with their environment after pollination, as seeds form, disperse, and settle into the ground, continuing the cycle without spectacle. Once pollination has occurred, the visible work of the flower begins to fade. Petals wither, colors soften, and structures that once guided attention slowly recede. What follows is less noticeable, but no less important. Within the flower, a transformation is underway. Pollination does not mark an ending. It marks a transition. After fertilization, the flower's reproductive tissues begin to develop into seeds. Surrounding structures may enlarge or change form, becoming what we recognize as fruit. These changes are not ornamental. They are functional responses to a new task: dispersal. Seeds carry the next generation. Their success depends not only on formation, but on movement. A seed that falls too close to its parent competes for the same light, water, and nutrients. Dispersal reduces this competition and increases the chances of survival. Plants have evolved many strategies to move seeds away from their point of origin. Some rely on wind, others on water, gravity, or animals. Each method reflects the environment in which the plant lives. Wind-dispersed seeds are often lightweight and structured to remain airborne. Some have wings, membranes, or fine hairs that increase surface area and slow descent. These structures allow seeds to travel far from the parent plant, sometimes across open landscapes or between habitats. In contrast, gravity-dispersed seeds are heavier and fall directly to the ground. These plants often grow on slopes, cliffs, or elevated areas where rolling or bouncing extends dispersal distance. While movement is limited, placement may still be effective if conditions nearby are suitable. Water-dispersed seeds are adapted to float. They may have air-filled tissues or protective coatings that prevent water absorption. Rivers, streams, and ocean currents become pathways of movement. Some seeds can travel long distances before settling, connecting distant ecosystems. Animal-assisted dispersal introduces another layer of interaction. Many plants produce fruits that attract animals. The fruit's color, texture, and nutritional content encourage consumption. Seeds are either discarded or pass through digestive systems, often benefiting from transport and nutrient-rich deposition. In these cases, Fruit is not a reward. It is a vehicle. Importantly, fruits vary widely in form depending on dispersal strategy. Fleshy fruits attract animals. Dry, lightweight fruits favor wind. Hard shells protect seeds during long journeys. Each structure reflects a specific solution to movement. Seed size also influences dispersal. Small seeds are produced in large numbers and rely on probability. Larger seeds contain more stored energy, supporting early growth, but are fewer and often depend on targeted dispersal methods. Once dispersed, seeds enter a period of waiting. Germination does not occur immediately in many species. Instead, seeds remain dormant until conditions are suitable. This dormancy protects against unfavorable seasons and unpredictable environments. Dormancy is regulated by internal and external signals. Temperature, moisture, light, and chemical cues influence when a seed becomes active. Some seeds require cold periods before germination, ensuring growth occurs in spring rather than autumn. Others respond to fire, physical abrasion, or passage through an animal's digestive tract. This delayed response introduces time into reproduction. Seeds do not rush. Soil conditions play a crucial role at this stage. The depth at which a seed settles affects access to light and moisture. Soil texture influences oxygen availability. Microorganisms interact with seeds, sometimes aiding germination, sometimes preventing it. Even after dispersal, success is not guaranteed. Many seeds never germinate. This is expected. Plant reproduction accounts for loss by producing more seeds than will survive. The process is not wasteful. It is balanced against uncertainty. At a broader scale, seed dispersal shapes plant distribution across landscapes. Forest edges, riverbanks, and disturbed areas often show high plant diversity due to varied dispersal pathways. Over time, these movements contribute to ecosystem structure. Seed banks form in soil as dormant seeds accumulate over years or decades. These reserves allow plant communities to recover after disturbance. When conditions change, stored seeds respond, restoring vegetation without external input. From a quiet observational perspective, dispersal reveals a key feature of plant life: movement without intention. Plants do not choose destinations. They respond to forces that carry them. Wind, water, animals, and gravity become extensions of plant reproduction. Through them, plants occupy space gradually, filling landscapes without urgency. This process unfolds continuously, often unnoticed. Seeds fall, settle, and wait. Some remain inactive for years before emerging. Others germinate quickly, taking advantage of brief windows of opportunity. As attention rests on this slow expansion, it becomes clear that plant life operates on overlapping timelines. Flowers bloom briefly, seeds persist, landscapes change gradually. These overlapping rhythms connect reproduction to environment. Plants do not act independently of their surroundings. Their life cycles are woven into climate patterns, soil processes, and animal movement. This connection prepares the ground for understanding how flowers and plants respond to larger environmental changes. Once seeds establish themselves, they encounter seasons, stress, and variation. And so, gently, the focus moves forward, from dispersal and settlement toward how flowering plants endure change over time, adjusting to shifting conditions without haste. Flowers do not exist in isolation. Every aspect of their structure, timing, and behavior is shaped by the environment in which they grow. Light, temperature, soil composition, water availability, and surrounding organisms all influence how flowers develop and function. Understanding flowers therefore requires attention not only to their anatomy, but to the conditions that surround them. Different environments place different demands on flowering plants. In open grasslands, flowers must tolerate strong sunlight, wind, and temperature variation. In forests, light is filtered through layers of leaves, humidity is higher, and competition for space is intense. In deserts, water scarcity defines every stage of growth. In wetlands, excess moisture and low oxygen levels shape root and flower structure. Each setting favors certain traits. Light availability is one of the most influential environmental factors. Flowers growing in full sun often develop thicker petals and stronger pigmentation to protect tissues from ultraviolet radiation. In shaded environments, flowers may be paler, larger, or positioned higher on the plant to increase visibility in low-light conditions. The angle and duration of sunlight also influence flowering time. Some plants bloom early in the day, others in the afternoon or evening. This timing aligns flower opening with the activity patterns of pollinators and with temperature conditions that protect delicate tissues. Temperature affects both the speed and success of flowering. Cooler climates often compress flowering into short seasonal windows. Plants must synchronize growth precisely to take advantage of favorable conditions. In contrast, tropical environments may support extended or continuous flowering due to stable temperatures. However, stable temperatures introduce other challenges, such as intense competition for pollinators and space. In these regions, specialization becomes more common. Flowers may evolve highly specific structures or timing to reduce overlap with other species. Soil composition also plays a critical role. Nutrient availability influences flower size, number, and longevity. Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium are particularly important for reproductive development. Deficiencies can reduce flowering or lead to incomplete seed formation. Soil texture affects water retention and aeration, influencing root health and, indirectly, flower production. Compact soils limit root expansion, while well-drained soils support stable growth. Flowers reflect these conditions through their abundance and structure. Water availability shapes flowering strategies across environments. In dry regions, many plants flower briefly after rainfall, completing reproduction before moisture disappears. These flowers often open rapidly and close just as quickly. Their timing is precise, responding to subtle environmental cues. In wetter environments, flowers may remain open longer, allowing extended interaction with pollinators. Excess moisture, however, increases the risk of fungal growth and tissue damage, leading to adaptations such as elevated flowers or waxy surfaces. Altitude introduces another set of constraints. At higher elevations, temperatures are lower, winds are stronger, and growing seasons are shorter. Flowers in these environments often grow close to the ground, reducing exposure. Their colors may be darker to absorb more heat, and their structures sturdier to resist wind. Despite these challenges, alpine flowers often display remarkable efficiency. Their life cycles are compressed, and their responses to favorable conditions are rapid. Surrounding plant communities also influence flowering behavior. In dense vegetation, flowers may compete for pollinators by blooming at different times or by occupying distinct visual or spatial niches. This partitioning reduces overlap and improves reproductive success for multiple species. In some environments, flowers rely less on attracting attention and more on sheer abundance. Mass flowering events, where many individuals bloom simultaneously, overwhelm pollinators and increase the likelihood of successful pollination. Disturbance is another important environmental factor. Fire, grazing, storms, and human activity alter landscapes and create new opportunities for flowering plants. Some species are adapted to disturbed environments, flowering quickly in open spaces created by disruption. Fire-adapted plants, for example, may flower more abundantly after burns. Heat can stimulate germination, remove competitors, and release nutrients into the soil. In these systems, flowering becomes part of a recovery process. Seasonal change integrates many environmental influences into predictable cycles. Photoperiod, the length of day and night, provides a reliable signal for flowering time. Plants use changes in daylight to coordinate reproduction with favorable seasons. This sensitivity ensures that flowering aligns with pollinator availability, temperature conditions, and moisture levels. It also reduces the risk of damage from frost or drought. Environmental variation does not produce uniform responses. Within a single species, flowers may vary in size, color, and timing depending on local conditions. This plasticity allows plants to adjust to short-term changes without genetic modification. Over longer periods, consistent environmental pressures shape evolution. Flowers become specialized to local conditions, leading to regional differences and eventually diversification. From a broader perspective, flowers act as indicators of environmental health. Changes in flowering time, abundance, or distribution can signal shifts in climate, soil conditions, or ecosystem balance. These changes are often subtle at first, visible only through careful observation. In this way, flowers record environmental information. Their presence reflects past conditions while their responses reveal ongoing change. Despite their sensitivity, flowering plants persist across nearly all terrestrial environments. This persistence reflects flexibility rather than resistance. Flowers do not control their surroundings, they adjust to them. This adjustment is not immediate. It unfolds gradually through generations as plants respond to consistent patterns rather than isolated events. As attention remains on how flowers relate to their environments, another layer of interaction becomes apparent: the relationship between flowers and the organisms that live alongside them, shaping and reshaping their conditions over time. And so, without abrupt transition, the focus moves toward the connections between flowers, animals, and broader ecological systems, where influence flows in both directions. Flowers do not interact randomly with the living world around them. Their relationships with pollinators are structured, repeated, and shaped by long periods of adjustment. These interactions are not cooperative in a conscious sense, nor are they accidental. They are the result of compatibility. Pollination by animals depends on predictable movement. Insects, birds, and other animals visit flowers for food, shelter, or warmth. In doing so, they transfer pollen between plants. Flowers that succeed in reproduction are those whose structures, timing, and signals align with the behavior and anatomy of these visitors. This alignment develops gradually. Different groups of pollinators interact with flowers in distinct ways. Bees, for example, are sensitive to ultraviolet patterns and are attracted to flowers that offer accessible pollen and nectar. Their bodies are often covered in fine hairs that trap pollen grains efficiently. As they move between flowers, pollen is transferred with minimal loss. Butterflies, in contrast, have long proboscises adapted for reaching nectar in narrow floral tubes. Flowers pollinated by butterflies often have elongated shapes and provide landing platforms. Color patterns are visible from a distance, guiding approach. Moths, which are active primarily at night, rely less on color and more on scent. Flowers pollinated by moths often open in the evening, display pale coloration, and release strong fragrances that travel through still night air. Bird pollination follows a different pattern. Birds have high energy demands and require nectar-rich flowers. Many bird-pollinated flowers are tubular, sturdy, and brightly colored, often red or orange. These colors stand out to birds while being less attractive to insects, reducing competition for nectar. Each of these relationships reflects a match between flower traits and pollinator abilities. Importantly, pollinators are not passive carriers. Their behavior influences which flowers receive pollen and how often. A pollinator that visits multiple flowers of the same species increases the likelihood of successful fertilization. Flowers that encourage repeat visits through reward consistency gain an advantage. This leads to specialization in some systems. Certain flowers rely on a narrow range of pollinators, sometimes a single species. This specialization can increase efficiency, but also introduces vulnerability. If a pollinator population declines, the plant's reproduction may be affected. Other flowers maintain more general relationships. They are accessible to multiple pollinators, reducing reliance on any one species. This flexibility provides stability in changing environments. The balance between specialization and generalization depends on ecological context. Timing plays a central role in these interactions. Flowers open when pollinators are active. Nectar production follows predictable cycles. Pollen release aligns with peak visitation. These temporal patterns reduce wasted effort and improve success rates. In some species, flowers adjust their behavior in response to visitation. Nectar levels may decrease after repeated visits, encouraging pollinators to move on. Color changes can signal that a flower has already been visited, redirecting attention to unpollinated blooms. These signals are not conscious responses. They are biochemical processes shaped by selection. The physical interaction between pollinator and flower also matters. Flower shape influences how pollen is deposited on the visitor's body. Some flowers place pollen on specific body parts that are likely to contact the stigma of another flower. This precise placement increases accuracy. In orchids, for example, pollen may attach to a pollinator's head or abdomen in a specific position, When the pollinator visits the next flower, contact occurs reliably. This precision demonstrates that pollination is not simply transfer, but placement. Environmental conditions influence pollinator availability. Temperature, wind, and precipitation affect insect activity. Flowers respond by adjusting opening times, orientation, and even structure. In cooler environments, flowers may track the sun to increase warmth, making themselves more attractive to cold-sensitive pollinators. At a larger scale, pollination networks connect multiple species. A single pollinator may visit several plant species, and a single plant may be visited by multiple pollinators. These networks create resilience. If one interaction weakens, others may compensate. However, disruptions to these networks can have cascading effects. Habitat loss, climate change, and pesticide use alter pollinator behavior and abundance. Flowers respond through shifts in timing, structure, or distribution, but adjustment takes time. Changes in flowering time relative to pollinator activity can reduce overlap, decreasing pollination success. These mismatches are subtle at first, but can accumulate. From an observational standpoint, pollination relationships reveal that flowers exist within dynamic systems. They are not static structures awaiting interaction. They are active participants in ecological exchange. Yet this participation is quiet. There is no struggle or negotiation. Movement occurs through repetition, not urgency. Pollination does not require awareness. It requires alignment. As these relationships repeat season after season, they shape both plant and pollinator populations. Successful interactions become more common. Inefficient ones fade. Over long periods, this mutual influence contributes to diversification. Flower shapes, colors, and timings vary, while pollinator behaviors and preferences shift in response. This slow co-adjustment produces the diversity observed across ecosystems. As attention settles on these structured relationships, it becomes clear that flowers are not isolated signals, but components of larger systems. Their interactions extend beyond individual visits, influencing plant communities and landscape patterns. This realization gently leads toward understanding how flowers function within broader ecological networks, systems where interactions overlap, reinforce, and stabilize entire environments. And so, without interruption, focus drifts toward flowers as parts of communities where cooperation and coexistence shape survival beyond individual reproduction. Flowers do not function independently. Although they are often observed as individual structures, their development, success, and persistence are shaped by the plant communities in which they exist. Every flowering plant grows among others, competing, cooperating, and responding to shared environmental conditions. A plant community is a collection of species that occupy the same space and interact over time. Within these communities, flowers play roles that extend beyond reproduction. They influence spacing, timing, resource use, and ecological balance. Competition is one of the most immediate forces shaping flowering behavior. Plants growing close together compete for light, water, nutrients, and pollinators. Flowers respond to this competition through timing, placement, and form. Some species bloom earlier in the season to avoid overlap. Others delay flowering until competitors have finished. This staggering of flowering periods reduces competition for pollinators and resources. Over time, these patterns become stable features of the community. Vertical space is also important. In layered environments, such as forests, flowering plants occupy different heights. Ground-level flowers rely on low-light strategies, while canopy or understory plants position flowers where light is available. This vertical separation reduces direct competition and increases overall diversity. Root systems further structure these communities. While flowers are visible above ground, root networks below the surface influence which plants can coexist. Species with shallow roots may thrive alongside deep-rooted neighbors, drawing water and nutrients from different soil layers. These underground differences support above-ground diversity. Cooperation also plays a role. Some plants improve soil conditions, making it easier for others to grow. Nitrogen-fixing plants enrich soil nutrients. Shade-providing species moderate temperature and moisture. Flowers benefit indirectly from these shared improvements. In some communities, flowering success depends on collective behavior. Mass flowering events occur when many individuals bloom simultaneously. This overwhelms pollinators with abundance, increasing visitation rates. It can also reduce damage from herbivores by saturating their feeding capacity. Such coordination does not require communication. It arises from shared responses to environmental cues such as temperature and daylight. Plant communities also influence pollinator behavior. Diverse communities attract a wider range of pollinators, increasing the likelihood of successful pollination for many species. In contrast, simplified communities may limit pollinator options, reducing efficiency. This interdependence means that changes to one species can affect others. Removing a dominant flowering plant may alter pollinator visitation patterns, indirectly impacting less abundant species. Disturbance reshapes plant communities and, with them, flowering patterns. Fires, storms, floods, and human activity create openings in vegetation. These openings allow light to reach the ground, triggering flowering in species adapted to disturbed environments. Pioneer species often flower quickly, stabilizing soil and creating conditions for later arrivals. Over time, community composition shifts and flowering patterns adjust accordingly. This process of succession illustrates that plant communities are dynamic. Flowers appear and disappear as conditions change. Stability emerges not from permanence, but from continuous adjustment. Seasonality further organizes communities. In temperate regions, flowering follows predictable sequences. Early spring flowers emerge before trees leaf out. Summer flowers dominate open spaces. Late-season flowers provide resources as others decline. These sequences distribute pollinator demand across time, supporting both plants and pollinators throughout the year. In tropical regions, where seasonality is less pronounced, flowering may occur year-round, but still follows subtle environmental rhythms. Rainfall patterns, soil moisture, and temperature shifts influence timing. From a broader perspective, flowers act as connectors within communities. They link plants to pollinators, soil organisms, and climate processes. Through these connections, flowering contributes to ecosystem stability. At the same time, flowers reflect the condition of their communities. Changes in flowering abundance or timing can signal shifts in resource availability or environmental stress. Despite constant interaction, plant communities operate without urgency. Adjustments occur gradually, often across generations. This slow pace allows systems to absorb variation and maintain balance. As attention rests on these collective patterns, it becomes clear that flowers are shaped not only by their immediate needs, but by long-standing relationships within their surroundings. This understanding naturally leads toward examining how flowering plants respond to environmental change over time, how stability is maintained, altered, or restored as conditions shift. And so, without disruption, focus moves forward toward flowers as participants in adaptation, persistence, and long-term balance within changing landscapes. Flowers exist within environments that are never entirely stable. Temperature, rainfall, light patterns, and soil conditions shift gradually or abruptly over time. These changes shape how flowers grow when they bloom and how successfully they reproduce. Unlike animals, flowering plants cannot relocate when conditions change. Their responses must occur where they stand. This limitation has shaped a wide range of adaptive strategies that allow flowers to persist through variation. Environmental change influences flowering at multiple scales. Some changes occur seasonally and predictably. Others unfold over decades or centuries. Flowers respond differently depending on the speed and intensity of these shifts. Short-term environmental variation affects flowering timing. Temperature fluctuations can accelerate or delay bloom periods. Warmer conditions often cause flowers to open earlier in the season, while cooler periods delay development. These shifts alter interactions with pollinators and surrounding plants. Rainfall patterns influence flowering intensity. Adequate moisture supports larger numbers of flowers and longer blooming periods. Drought conditions reduce flower production, shorten bloom duration, and may prevent flowering altogether in some species. Light availability also plays a role. Changes in canopy cover, whether caused by storms, fire, or human activity, alter the amount of light reaching flowering plants. Increased light can trigger flowering in species adapted to open environments, while shade-tolerant species may decline. Long-term environmental change introduces more complex challenges. Gradual shifts in climate affect temperature averages, precipitation patterns, and seasonal predictability. Flowers that rely on specific conditions may experience reduced success as their environmental cues change. One of the most studied responses to environmental change is phenological shift, changes in the timing of biological events. Many flowering plants now bloom earlier in the year than they did in previous decades. This shift reflects warming temperatures and altered seasonal cues. Phenological change is not inherently harmful, but it can disrupt established relationships. If pollinators do not adjust their activity patterns at the same rate, flowering plants may experience reduced pollination. These mismatches can affect reproductive success. Some plants display flexibility. They adjust flowering time across years based on temperature and moisture conditions. This plasticity allows them to respond to variation without genetic change. Others are more rigid, relying on fixed cues such as day length, which does not change with climate. Genetic adaptation occurs over longer periods, Populations exposed to consistent environmental pressure may gradually shift flowering traits. Individuals whose flowering timing aligns better with new conditions are more likely to reproduce successfully. However, adaptation requires time and population stability. Rapid environmental change can outpace this process, particularly in fragmented habitats where gene flow is limited. Environmental stress affects flower structure as well as timing. Heat stress can reduce flower size, damage reproductive tissues, or shorten bloom duration. Water stress may lead to incomplete development of pollen or ovules, reducing fertility. In some cases, flowers alter investment strategies under stress. Rather than producing many flowers, plants may produce fewer, more robust blooms. This trade-off reflects limited resources and prioritization of survival. Soil conditions also change over time. Nutrient depletion, erosion, and chemical alteration influence flower production. Plants growing in degraded soils often exhibit reduced flowering or altered floral traits. Fire represents a unique form of environmental change. In fire-prone ecosystems, some flowering plants are adapted to burn cycles. Fire removes competing vegetation, releases nutrients, and alters soil structure. In response, certain species flower more abundantly after fires. These post-disturbance flowering events contribute to ecosystem recovery. Flowers attract pollinators to newly opened landscapes, supporting regeneration. Human activity has become a significant driver of environmental change. Land conversion, pollution, and habitat fragmentation alter the conditions under which flowers grow. Urban environments create new microclimates with higher temperatures and altered light patterns. Some flowering plants adapt to these conditions, blooming earlier or producing flowers in unexpected seasons. Others decline due to reduced pollinator availability or soil disruption. Despite these pressures, flowers continue to appear across changing landscapes. Their persistence reflects resilience built through diversity of strategies rather than resistance to change. Diversity within flowering plant communities provides stability. When conditions shift, some species decline while others expand. This turnover maintains ecosystem function even as composition changes. At a broader scale, flowers act as indicators of environmental change. Shifts in flowering time, abundance, and distribution provide early signals of ecological alteration. These signals often precede visible changes in vegetation structure. Observation of flowering patterns therefore offers insight into environmental trends. Flowers respond to subtle changes long before larger systems shift. Yet these responses unfold without urgency. Even when conditions change rapidly, flowers adjust through small, repeated modifications rather than dramatic shifts. This gradual response reflects the pace at which plants operate. They integrate information over seasons, not moments. Their adjustments prioritize continuity over immediacy. As attention settles on how flowers respond to change, another perspective emerges: how flowers contribute to stability within ecosystems, anchoring landscapes even as conditions vary. This perspective gently leads toward understanding flowers not only as responders to change, but as stabilizing elements within dynamic environments. And so, without interruption, focus moves forward toward flowers as contributors to balance, persistence, and long-term continuity within living systems. Flowers are often associated with change, blooming, fading, returning, yet their presence contributes quietly to stability. Across landscapes, flowering plants help hold soil, regulate water movement, support food webs, and maintain the structure of ecosystems over time. Their influence extends beyond reproduction, shaping how land remains intact under pressure. Landscape stability depends on many factors: soil cohesion, water flow, plant cover, and biological interactions. Flowering plants contribute to each of these elements through their growth patterns and life cycles. Roots are central to this process. While flowers are visible above ground, root systems anchor plants to the soil. In flowering plants, root networks bind soil particles together, reducing erosion caused by wind and water. This stabilization is especially important on slopes, riverbanks, and open fields. In grasslands and meadows, flowering plants with dense root systems form continuous mats that protect soil from being displaced. These roots slow surface runoff during rain, allowing water to infiltrate rather than wash soil away. Over time, this process preserves soil depth and fertility. In forested environments, flowering understory plants contribute to layered stability. Their roots occupy shallow soil layers, complementing deeper tree roots. This vertical distribution strengthens soil structure and improves water retention. Flowers also influence how landscapes manage water. Vegetation slows rainfall impact, reducing soil compaction. Leaves intercept water, releasing it gradually into the soil. Root systems create channels that improve drainage and oxygen flow. These processes moderate extremes. During heavy rainfall, plant cover reduces flooding and erosion. During dry periods, retained moisture supports continued biological activity. Flowering plants also play a role in nutrient cycling. As flowers fade and plant tissues decompose, organic matter returns to the soil. This material improves soil structure and provides nutrients for future growth. Stable landscapes rely on this continuous renewal. Over time, flowering plants contribute to soil formation itself. In harsh environments such as rocky slopes or disturbed land, pioneer flowering species establish first. Their roots break down rock, and their tissues add organic matter. Gradually, soil develops where none existed before. This slow accumulation supports more complex plant communities. Flowers initiate processes that lead to long-term stability. In coastal environments, flowering plants such as dune grasses stabilize shifting sands. Their roots trap sediment, reducing movement caused by wind. Above ground, flowers and stems reduce airflow at the surface, further limiting erosion. Wetland flowering plants perform similar functions. Their roots hold saturated soils together, preventing collapse. They slow water movement, allowing sediments to settle. This stabilizes shorelines and reduces the impact of storms. Even in arid regions, flowering plants contribute to stability. Desert plants often have extensive root systems adapted to scarce water. Their presence reduces soil loss and creates microhabitats that support other organisms. At a community level, flowering plants contribute to resilience. Diverse plant communities respond to disturbance more effectively than simplified systems. When one species declines, others may expand, maintaining coverage and function. This diversity is supported by varied flowering times and strategies. As conditions shift, some species thrive while others recede. Stability emerges not from uniformity, but from variation. Flowers also support stability through their relationships with animals. Pollinators, seed dispersers, and herbivores interact with flowering plants, influencing movement of nutrients and energy across landscapes. These interactions distribute biological activity, preventing localized depletion. Seed dispersal further extends plant influence. Seeds establish in new locations, reinforcing vegetation cover and expanding stabilization processes. Over time, this spread connects patches of vegetation, strengthening landscape continuity. Human-altered landscapes reveal the importance of flowering plants in stability. Areas stripped of vegetation experience rapid erosion, flooding, and nutrient loss. Reintroduction of flowering plants often marks the first step in restoration. Restoration efforts frequently begin with native flowering species adapted to local conditions. These plants establish quickly, improve soil health, and support pollinators. Their presence creates conditions for broader ecological recovery. Climate variability places additional pressure on landscapes. Extreme weather events increase erosion risk. Flowering plants mitigate these impacts by buffering temperature, stabilizing soil, and regulating water. Despite these functions, the stabilizing role of flowers often goes unnoticed. Their effects are cumulative, unfolding over seasons and years rather than moments. From a quiet perspective, flowers represent persistence. They do not resist forces directly. They absorb, distribute, and adapt. Their stability comes from flexibility rather than rigidity. This approach aligns with broader plant strategies. Rather than maintaining fixed forms, flowering plants adjust growth patterns to conditions. Roots deepen, stems strengthen, flowering timing shifts. These adjustments support continuity. As attention rests on how flowers shape landscapes, it becomes clear that stability is not static. Landscapes remain intact because of constant, subtle processes that counterbalance change. Flowers are part of this balance. They anchor soil, regulate water, support life, and renew resources. Their contribution is steady and understated. This understanding naturally leads toward considering flowers across longer timescales, how they persist through years, decades, and centuries, maintaining continuity across generations. And so, without breaking rhythm, focus moves forward toward flowers and time, longevity, cycles, and the quiet endurance that defines plant life across ages. Flowers are often perceived as brief events. A bud opens, petals unfold, color appears, and then the form fades. Yet this apparent brevity exists within much longer timelines. Flowering plants operate across overlapping scales of time, from hours and days to decades and centuries. To understand flowers fully, it is necessary to step back from individual blooms and observe continuity. At the shortest scale, flowering follows daily rhythms. Many flowers open and close at specific times of day. Temperature, light intensity, and humidity influence these cycles. Some flowers open in the morning and close by afternoon. Others remain closed during daylight and open at night. These patterns align with environmental conditions and pollinator activity. They reflect responsiveness rather than urgency. Seasonal cycles operate at a broader scale. In temperate regions, flowering is concentrated within specific months. Plants synchronize flowering with spring warming, summer light availability, or autumn rainfall. This synchronization increases pollination success and reduces exposure to unfavorable conditions. In contrast, tropical environments often support extended flowering periods. Stable temperatures allow plants to flower multiple times per year or continuously. Even in these regions, subtle seasonal rhythms exist, often tied to rainfall patterns rather than temperature. These seasonal cycles repeat year after year. Individual flowers may last only days, but flowering as a process persists through generations. Longevity in flowering plants takes many forms. Some species complete their entire life cycle in a single growing season. These annual plants rely on rapid growth and prolific seed production. Their continuity exists through seeds rather than long-lived structures. Perennial flowering plants follow a different strategy. They survive across multiple seasons, flowering repeatedly over years or decades. Their root systems, stems, or underground storage organs persist even when flowers are absent. Trees represent another scale of longevity. Many flowering trees live for decades or centuries. Their flowers appear briefly each year, marking reproductive cycles within long-lived organisms. The same individual tree may flower hundreds of times across its lifespan. In these cases, flowers become recurring events rather than isolated occurrences. At an even broader scale, flowering lineages persist across evolutionary time. The first flowering plants appeared more than 100 million years ago. Since then, they have diversified into hundreds of thousands of species, occupying nearly every terrestrial environment. This diversification reflects long-term continuity. Flower structures change gradually across generations, shaped by environment, pollinators, and chance. While individual flowers are short-lived, the patterns they represent endure. Cycles of disturbance and recovery also influence flowering across time. Fire, storms, floods, and glaciation alter landscapes. Flowering plants respond by recolonizing, stabilizing, and rebuilding ecosystems. Some species are adapted to recurring disturbance. They flower quickly after disruption, establishing presence before competitors return. Others persist through disturbance using underground structures that survive damage. These strategies allow flowering plants to bridge periods of instability. Seed banks further extend continuity. Seeds stored in soil can remain viable for years or decades. When conditions become favorable, they germinate, restoring flowering populations even after long absences. This delayed response links past and future. Flowers that bloomed decades earlier may give rise to new plants long after the original individuals are gone. Climate variability introduces additional temporal layers. Long-term climate trends influence where flowering plants can survive. Over centuries, species shift their ranges, tracking suitable conditions. Flowering times adjust gradually, aligning with new seasonal patterns. These adjustments do not occur instantly. They accumulate through small shifts, repeated across generations. Human time often focuses on immediacy. Plant time does not. Flowering plants integrate information over extended periods. Their responses reflect averages rather than extremes. This approach provides resilience. Short-term anomalies do not immediately disrupt long-term patterns. Flowers may fail in one season, but succeed in the next. Continuity emerges through repetition rather than constancy. From an observational perspective, flowers serve as markers of time. Seasonal blooms signal transitions. Long-lived plants anchor landscapes across generations. Fossilized pollen records reveal ancient vegetation patterns. These records demonstrate that while individual forms change, flowering as a strategy persists. Even in cultivated landscapes, flowering cycles maintain rhythm. Agricultural systems depend on predictable flowering times. Gardens follow seasonal progressions. Urban environments support flowering adapted to altered conditions. Across all these contexts, flowers operate within layered temporal frameworks. They respond to immediate conditions while maintaining continuity across longer spans. This temporal layering explains why flowers appear both fleeting and enduring. The bloom is brief, the system is persistent. As attention rests on this perspective, the understanding of flowers shifts. They are not moments of beauty interrupting time. They are expressions of time itself, condensed signals within long ongoing processes. This realization gently prepares attention for a more reflective understanding of how flowers relate to human perception and experience. As flowers persist through cycles and generations, they intersect with human lives repeatedly, and so without abrupt transition, focus moves toward the relationship between flowers and human presence, how people observe, cultivate, use, and coexist with flowering plants over time. Flowers have existed long before humans, yet for as long as humans have lived on Earth, flowers have been part of their surroundings. This relationship is neither accidental nor purely aesthetic. It has developed through daily proximity, repeated use, and quiet observation across generations. Human life unfolds within landscapes shaped by flowering plants. Fields, forests, wetlands, and grasslands all include flowering species that influence food systems, settlement patterns, and cultural practices. Long before flowers were cultivated intentionally, humans encountered them as elements of their environment. Early human societies interacted with flowering plants primarily through foraging. Flowers signaled the presence of fruits, seeds, and edible plant parts. Their seasonal appearance helped structure movement across landscapes, guiding people toward resources at specific times of year. Over time, humans learned to recognize which flowers indicated nourishment and which signaled danger. This knowledge accumulated gradually, passed through observation rather than formal instruction. Flowers became markers within a shared ecological understanding. The domestication of plants deepened this relationship. Humans began selecting flowering plants for traits that aligned with human needs: larger fruits, predictable flowering times, or increased seed production. This process altered plant populations while remaining grounded in existing biological systems. Cultivated flowers also emerged. Some were grown for food-related purposes, others for medicinal use, and many for their presence alone. The cultivation of ornamental flowers reflects a shift from survival-based interaction to intentional coexistence. Flowers became part of human spaces. Gardens, courtyards, and agricultural fields integrated flowering plants into daily life. These spaces were not separate from nature, but extensions of it, shaped by human care and attention. Medicinal use of flowers developed alongside cultivation. Certain flowers contain compounds with therapeutic properties. These compounds were discovered through repeated exposure and experimentation rather than theoretical knowledge. Over time, flowers became part of traditional medical systems across cultures. Flowers also contributed to material culture. Dyes derived from petals-colored textiles. Oils extracted from flowers were used in rituals, hygiene, and preservation. These uses depended on the chemical properties of flowers, not symbolic interpretation. Yet symbolism emerged naturally alongside function. Flowers marked life events, seasons, and transitions. Their cycles mirrored human experiences of change, continuity, and renewal. This parallel encouraged cultural meaning without requiring abstraction. Importantly, human use of flowers has always been constrained by availability. Flowering is seasonal. Harvesting must align with plant cycles. This constraint shaped rhythms of work and rest, reinforcing awareness of environmental timing. In agricultural systems, flowers play essential roles beyond aesthetics. Crop plants depend on flowering for yield. Pollination supports food production. The presence of wildflowers near fields improves pollinator activity, increasing crop success. This practical interdependence highlights coexistence rather than dominance. Human systems function best when aligned with plant processes rather than imposed upon them. Urban environments have altered this relationship, but not eliminated it. Cities support flowering plants in parks, gardens, balconies, and along streets. These plants adjust to altered light, temperature, and soil conditions, continuing to flower despite environmental modification. Urban flowers influence human experience subtly. They soften built environments, regulate microclimates, and support insects. Their presence contributes to environmental stability even within heavily altered landscapes. At the same time, human activity affects flowering patterns. Selective breeding, land use, and climate alteration change when and how flowers bloom. Some species adapt, others decline. This dynamic reflects ongoing interaction rather than separation. Modern horticulture has intensified human influence on flowers. Breeding programs emphasize size, color, and longevity. While these traits appeal visually, they sometimes reduce ecological function, such as nectar availability. However, awareness of ecological balance is increasing. Interest in native flowering plants and pollinator-friendly gardens reflects a shift toward coexistence rather than control. Flowers also shape human perception of time and place. Seasonal blooms mark transitions in the year. Familiar flowering patterns anchor memory and identity within landscapes. These associations form quietly through repetition. Importantly, flowers do not respond to human meaning. Their growth follows biological processes regardless of interpretation. Coexistence does not require reciprocity of awareness. It depends on accommodation. This distinction matters Flowers persist without attention. Human presence influences them, but does not define them. From a broader perspective, flowers illustrate how humans exist within ecological systems rather than outside them. Human life intersects with flowering cycles repeatedly through food, medicine, labor, and observation. These intersections are not dramatic. They are woven into daily experience. Flowers bloom. People notice, use, or pass by. Life continues. As human societies change, flowers remain. They adjust to new conditions, new spaces, and new pressures. Their persistence reflects continuity rather than fragility. This understanding prepares attention for a more reflective perspective. Beyond function and coexistence, flowers influence how humans perceive calm, attention, and presence. Without effort, focus begins to shift from interaction toward perception, toward how flowers shape mental states simply through their steady existence. And so, gently, the narrative moves toward flowers and the quiet mind, where observation replaces use and presence replaces action. Flowers do not act with intention, yet their presence consistently influences human attention. Across cultures and environments, people slow down when observing flowers. This response does not arise from symbolism alone, but from the way flowers exist in time and space. To understand this effect, it is helpful to consider perception rather than meaning. Flowers change slowly. Their movements are subtle. A bud opens over hours or days. Color deepens gradually. Petals shift in response to light and temperature without sudden motion. This pace contrasts sharply with the speed of modern environments. When attention encounters slow processes, it adjusts. Human perception is highly responsive to rhythm. Rapid, unpredictable stimuli demand constant focus. Slow, continuous patterns allow attention to settle. Flowers belong to the second category. They offer visual information that unfolds without urgency. This quality affects how the nervous system responds. Observing flowers does not require rapid decision-making or interpretation. The mind is free to register color, form, and presence without needing to act. This reduces cognitive load. Importantly, flowers do not request attention. They do not signal danger, urgency, or reward in ways that demand immediate response. Their signals are stable. This stability supports calm observation. The visual complexity of flowers also plays a role. While flowers are detailed, their patterns are organized. Symmetry, repetition, and gradual gradients provide structure without chaos. The eye can explore without becoming overwhelmed. Color variation within flowers is often limited to harmonious ranges. Even when colors are vivid, transitions are smooth. This consistency reduces visual stress. The temporal aspect of flowers further supports calm. Unlike screens or mechanical systems, flowers do not refresh, update, or interrupt. Their presence remains constant within a given moment. This constancy allows sustained attention. The observer does not need to track change. Attention can remain anchored without effort. Environmental context amplifies this effect. Flowers are typically encountered outdoors or in natural light. These settings already encourage sensory regulation. Natural sounds, air movement, and ambient light complement visual calm. Even when flowers are observed indoors, their association with natural rhythms remains. Cut flowers continue to open and fade according to biological processes, not human schedules. Research on human attention suggests that exposure to natural elements supports recovery from mental fatigue. Flowers contribute to this effect by offering focal points that engage attention gently rather than forcefully. Unlike tasks that require concentration, flower observation does not narrow attention. It broadens it. Peripheral awareness remains intact. Breathing slows naturally. Posture relaxes. This response does not depend on personal preference. Even individuals who do not consciously value flowers often experience similar physiological responses when exposed to natural forms. Flowers also provide a reference for non-urgency. Their life cycles are independent of human timelines. They bloom when conditions align, not when scheduled. This independence subtly reinforces an alternative pace of existence. In this way, flowers act as reminders rather than teachers. They do not instruct, they demonstrate. The mind responds by adjusting expectations. When observing flowers, there is nothing to complete, optimize, or improve. The experience is sufficient as it is. This absence of goal reduces internal pressure. Attention becomes observational rather than evaluative. Over time, repeated exposure to flowers can influence baseline perception. People who regularly spend time in natural environments often report increased tolerance for stillness and reduced reactivity. Flowers contribute to this effect through consistency and predictability. The quiet intelligence of flowers lies in their stability. They persist through change without resistance. They adjust without haste. This pattern resonates with human systems designed to seek balance. Importantly, flowers do not calm through distraction. They calm through alignment. Their rhythms align with biological processes that favor rest and regulation. This alignment is subtle. It does not announce itself. It unfolds naturally through repeated, low-demand sensory input. From this perspective, flowers influence mental states not because they are beautiful, but because they are steady. As attention rests on this idea, it becomes clear that flowers do not need to be interpreted to have an effect. Presence is sufficient. This understanding prepares the ground for the final reflection. If flowers shape perception through calm continuity, they offer insight into how stability and awareness can coexist without effort. And so, gently and without conclusion yet, attention moves toward the final synthesis, where flowers, time, environment, and perception come together in a broader understanding of quiet continuity. Some flowers support far more than their own reproduction. In many ecosystems, certain flowering species function as central sources of energy, shaping the survival of numerous organisms across different levels of the food web. These flowers do not merely participate in ecosystems, they help sustain them. Such species are often described as keystone resources. Their presence disproportionately influences ecological stability. When they flower, energy enters the system in concentrated, accessible forms. When they decline, entire networks are affected. The foundation of this influence lies in resource availability. Flowers produce nectar, pollen, oils, resins, and sometimes specialized compounds that serve as food or materials for a wide range of organisms. These resources appear at specific times and places, creating predictable opportunities within ecosystems. Nectar is one of the most significant energy sources produced by flowers. Rich in sugars, it provides immediate fuel for insects, birds, and mammals. For many pollinators, nectar is the primary energy source supporting daily activity, migration, and reproduction. Pollen supplies protein and essential nutrients. Many insects, particularly bees, rely on pollen for larval development. Without consistent pollen availability, populations cannot sustain themselves. Some flowers produce floral oils rather than nectar. These oils are collected by specialized bees and used to build nests or feed larvae. The relationship between these flowers and their pollinators is highly specific, and the loss of either partner can destabilize the system. Beyond pollinators, flowering plants influence herbivores, predators, and decomposers. Flowering often coincides with increased insect abundance, which supports birds, reptiles, and small mammals. This cascading effect links flowers to higher trophic levels. In tropical ecosystems, certain flowering trees act as seasonal anchors. During periods when few plants bloom, these species provide critical resources. Animals converge on these flowering events, sometimes traveling long distances to access nectar or pollen. Such mass flowering events support bats, primates, birds, and insects simultaneously. These animals in turn disperse seeds, control insect populations, and contribute to nutrient cycling. The flower becomes a node through which multiple processes pass. In temperate ecosystems, early flowering plants serve a similar role. Flowers that bloom before most vegetation has emerged provide the first food sources for pollinators after winter. Without these early blooms, pollinator populations may struggle to recover, affecting later flowering species as well. Late-season flowers are equally important. They supply energy as resources become scarce, supporting insects preparing for overwintering or migration. These flowers extend the functional season of ecosystems. The loss of keystone flowering species can have far-reaching effects. Pollinator populations may decline. Seed dispersal patterns change. Predator-prey relationships shift. These changes often occur gradually, making them difficult to detect until systems are significantly altered. Dependency within ecosystems is rarely linear. Many organisms rely on multiple flowering species across seasons. Likewise, a single flower may support dozens of species, each using its resources differently. This interdependence creates redundancy, but also vulnerability. Environmental stresses such as habitat loss, climate change, and pollution disproportionately affect keystone flowers. Because these species often produce large resource-rich blooms, they require stable conditions to thrive. When flowering timing shifts due to climate variation, resource availability can become misaligned with consumer needs. Pollinators may arrive too early or too late. Migratory species may miss critical feeding windows. Despite these challenges, ecosystems often display resilience through diversity. Multiple flowering species may partially compensate for the loss of one. However, compensation is rarely complete, especially when highly specialized relationships are involved. The importance of flowers extends below ground as well. Root systems of flowering plants support soil organisms, including fungi and bacteria. These organisms facilitate nutrient exchange, benefiting entire plant communities. Decomposing flowers and plant tissues return nutrients to the soil, sustaining future growth. This recycling supports productivity over time. From an ecological perspective, flowers act as converters. They transform sunlight into chemical energy and distribute it through ecosystems. This conversion is efficient, repeated, and scalable. Importantly, this role is not passive. Flowering patterns actively shape ecological dynamics. When flowers bloom determines when energy becomes available. Where they bloom determines who has access. These patterns structure ecosystems spatially and temporally. Human-managed landscapes highlight the importance of flowering resources. Agricultural systems that remove wildflowers often experience declines in pollinators and ecosystem services. Restoring flowering diversity improves resilience and productivity. Conservation efforts increasingly focus on protecting and restoring keystone flowering species. This approach supports not just individual plants, but entire ecological networks. From a broader view, flowers that feed ecosystems demonstrate that small structures can have large effects. A single species flowering for a short period can sustain hundreds of interactions. This understanding reframes how flowers are valued. Their significance lies not in appearance, but in function. As attention rests on this role, it becomes clear that flowers operate as quiet foundations. They support life continuously, without recognition or urgency. This perspective prepares the ground for synthesis. Having examined flowers as structures, signals, interactions, and resources, the final step is to integrate these layers into a unified understanding. And so, gently and without disruption, focus moves toward the concluding reflection, where flowers are seen not as isolated phenomena, but as expressions of stability, continuity, and quiet intelligence within living systems. Throughout this journey, flowers have been observed not as symbols or ornaments, but as working structures. Each chapter approached flowers from a different angle: form, timing, environment, interaction, stability, and ecological function, revealing that what is often called beauty is, in fact, the visible outcome of efficiency. Flowers exist because they function. They are not shaped to be admired. They are shaped to persist. Their colors emerge from pigments that protect tissues and attract specific organisms. Their forms arise from repeated interactions with air, insects, birds, and gravity. Their timing reflects environmental signals refined across generations. Their presence within ecosystems stabilizes soil, supports food webs, and maintains continuity. What humans recognize as beauty is the surface expression of this long process. A flower does not seek attention. It does not communicate meaning, it simply operates. And in operating with consistency and precision, it produces patterns that the human mind experiences as harmonious. This harmony is not decorative, it is structural. The petals that appear balanced are arranged to guide movement. The symmetry that seems pleasing distributes force evenly. The colors that appear gentle or vivid are tuned to specific visual systems. Even fragrance, when present, is released in precise concentrations aligned with environmental conditions. Every feature exists because it solves a problem. Across the chapters, flowers have been seen as part of larger systems rather than isolated forms. They connect soil to atmosphere, plants to pollinators, seasons to landscapes. Their influence extends far beyond their brief blooming period. When a flower opens, energy becomes accessible. When it fades, nutrients return to the system. When seeds disperse, landscapes are reshaped quietly over time. This continuity does not require awareness. It unfolds regardless of observation. Human experience enters the picture only later. People encounter flowers as moments of pause within movement. Streets, fields, forests, and gardens are interrupted by color and form. Attention slows not because flowers demand it, but because their pace differs from human urgency. Flowers operate without acceleration. Their presence introduces an alternative rhythm, one that does not compete, signal danger, or demand response. The mind adjusts naturally. Breathing becomes slower. Perception widens. Thought loses its edge. This effect is not psychological suggestion. It is alignment. The human nervous system responds to environments that signal safety and continuity. Flowers provide such signals not through intention, but through stability. They do not change abruptly. They do not pursue or retreat. They persist until conditions shift. Even their disappearance is gradual. In this way, flowers demonstrate that efficiency and calm are not opposites. They coexist. Function does not require urgency. Complexity does not require noise. The ecosystems that depend on flowers reflect this principle. Energy moves through them steadily. Relationships repeat. Disturbance occurs, but recovery follows through established pathways. Flowers feed entire systems not through force, but through availability. They convert light into nourishment. They make energy visible. They distribute resources across time rather than concentrating them in moments. This distribution supports balance. From the smallest scale, pollen grains transferred between flowers, to the largest, landscapes stabilized over centuries, flowers operate within layered systems of cause and effect. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is rushed. When viewed as a whole, flowers reveal a form of intelligence that does not rely on awareness or choice. Their intelligence lies in fit between structure and environment, timing and condition, presence and need. This is functional beauty. Beauty that emerges because something works. This perspective changes how flowers are understood. They are not pauses in nature. They are continuations, not decorations added to ecosystems, but expressions of how ecosystems function when energy moves smoothly. As this understanding settles, there is no need to hold on to details. The mind does not need to remember names, structures, or processes. The impression is sufficient. Flowers function. Because they function well, they endure. Because they endure, they appear harmonious. And because they appear harmonious, the human mind finds rest in their presence. This rest does not require explanation. It arrives naturally when attention encounters systems that operate without conflict. As this journey comes to a close, nothing needs to be concluded in the usual sense. The systems described here continue beyond this moment. Flowers will open and close, seeds will disperse, landscapes will adjust. Ecosystems will balance and rebalance. This continuity does not depend on observation, for now attention can release its focus. There is no next step to anticipate, no information to retain. The patterns explored here do not require effort to remain meaningful. Allow the steadiness of these systems to remain in the background of awareness. Let breathing slow without instruction. Let muscles release without direction. Let thought drift without needing to arrive anywhere. Flowers will continue to function, and in doing so they offer a quiet reminder that efficiency does not need speed and beauty does not need intention. Rest can follow function. And so gently, this journey through the world of flowers begins to settle. Tonight we moved through flowers not as decoration, but as working structures, forms shaped by function, timing, and relationship. We observed how petals guide movement, how color and scent act as precise signals, how pollination connects plants to air, insects, birds, and seasons. We saw how flowers belong to their environments, responding quietly to light, soil, water, and change, how they support plant communities, stabilize landscapes, and feed entire ecosystems through simple, repeated acts. Across time, flowers appeared not as fleeting moments, but as part of long continuities, cycles of growth, dispersal, and renewal that unfold without urgency. And perhaps without effort, you noticed how this steady rhythm invites the mind to slow. How attention softens when it rests on systems that function calmly, without noise or demand. If these quiet journeys bring you comfort, you're gently invited to like, subscribe, or leave a thought in the comments. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. You're always welcome to return, to learn something new without strain, or simply to rest in the quiet company of gentle ideas. For now, allow your breathing to slow. Let your body grow heavy. Let your thoughts drift without direction. Flowers will continue their work, opening and closing, feeding landscapes, holding balance, whether we observe them or not. And with that quiet certainty, you can rest. Good night.